Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back to the channel today for this 4K review. Today we're taking a look at The Craft, the latest from Scream Factory in their 4K Collector's Edition line. We're going to review the video quality, audio quality, talk about special features, packaging, all that good stuff, and we'll give you an overall recommendation of whether or not this one is worth upgrading for your collection. So if you like 4K and Blu-ray collecting, if you like physical media, movie collecting, even DVDs, or if you just like movies at all, please consider subscribing to the channel. Help us hit our goal of 100,000, and make sure you have your notifications on so you never miss a review, a video, a podcast, anything I'm doing here on the channel. I greatly appreciate it. So The Craft comes to 4K here from Scream Factory with a new 4K restoration from Sony. Sony does a good job with their stuff, and this is no exception. It's a pretty good 4K transfer. Overall, it's a nice upgrade over the Blu-ray. HDR, specifically Dolby Vision, is well used here, not overused, not oversaturated, but reds, greens, blues, your primary colors are much more vibrant. Brightness and contrast is enhanced. Your blacks are more black than gray. It's everything we'd want to see with the use of HDR. It's properly color graded, and that should come as no surprise since Sony did the restoration, and I hold them in pretty high regard when it comes to their stuff. They take good care of it, and The Craft is no exception. Now, the detail and the quality of this 4K is also greatly improved over previous Blu-ray or DVD releases. It was shot on film, and with the 4K format and a new 4K restoration for this release, you're going to see the grain resolve a lot better. It's not going to be as grainy. It's not going to be as distracting. It's going to be probably as good as this movie can look. This is most likely the pinnacle of physical formats, and this is most likely the pinnacle of The Craft. It's going to be hard to restore this at any higher level that anybody with a human eye can notice. Now, there is an interesting issue with this disc that has to be talked about, and I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's on the side of the compression and whoever did that, if Shout did it in-house, if they outsourced it and somebody screwed that up. I don't know where this error occurred, but this disc does have a problem with bit rates dropping to extremely low, almost DVD levels, and you're going to see some pretty ugly compression in a couple of scenes. So the most obvious time that I saw this was in the first 4 minutes of the movie. Right off the bat, you're going to see that your bit rates are extremely low, like 5 to 10 megabits per second. And for reference, the rest of this movie hovers between 80 to 100 megabits per second. So it's very poor quality. And another user on YouTube has done a head-to-head comparison, which I will link in the description, where you can really see the scenes in question. He does a straight Blu-ray to 4K comparison, and it's very clear that the 4K disc has issues. In fact, the Blu-ray disc has higher bit rates and better compression than the 4K does in several key scenes. So the worst instance of this is definitely those 4 minutes of the opening credits. It's pretty obvious, and you can see even here in a screenshot that I've taken from Capsaholic that if you look at the Blu-ray and the 4K and you zoom in on the clouds, you're going to see actual like artifact and compression errors on the 4K disc that you don't see on the Blu-ray. And the Blu-ray, the outline of the cloud, if you look at that, it's actually a little bit sharper than the 4K because the 4K is basically at DVD quality at that point. So it's clearly an issue 4 minutes in, and this user on YouTube, as well as HD Movie Source and some others, have identified several other scenes where this happens intermittently throughout the movie. Now, I wasn't super bothered by the rest of the scenes. The credits really bothered me. There was one scene about 30 minutes in that I thought, wow, that was not great. It definitely dipped in quality. The others, not so much. I would say that the average person who buys this and isn't a 4K reviewer or a real stickler for quality, they're probably going to go right by it and not notice it because it really isn't that bad. But it's clearly an issue. There are several scenes where the bit rate drops, compression becomes a problem, and there is something going on here that likely would warrant a replacement. Now, the issue is, so far, Shout Factory has not really taken much of action on this. In fact, HD Movie Source, they emailed them, and the response to that email, which I'll put here, was basically, well, Bluray.com gave it a 5 out of 5 on video, so there's probably nothing wrong with it. We'll keep an eye on it. Which is kind of a ridiculous response because, like, oh, okay, one website gave you a 5 out of 5 for a review, so there's nothing wrong with your disc. I mean, clearly other reviewers, and myself included, have missed errors before, so to say that, oh, one review is good, so we're fine, is pretty ridiculous. Now, it's been pointed out by this user on YouTube as well as HD Movie Source, myself, I know Movie Guy 365, Adam just did a video. He also identified it, and, you know, it's clearly a problem. So there's no two ways around it. Like, this probably needs a replacement disc. It's not as bad as some other errors where there's missing scenes or missing soundtracks or duplicated scenes like 12 Monkeys. The movie plays all the way through. Nothing's cut out, nothing's missing. But the quality of the few scenes where it dips is pretty unacceptable for a $28 purchase, right? So we'll have to see what Shout Factory does with this. So far, they've been kind of quiet, but I think if more people talk about it and make this known, we're probably in for another replacement disc here. Now, for audio on this, we get a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, which is just fine. You're not upgrading to Atmos or DTS-X, but the 5.1 is good, and it's not the type of movie that really would need Atmos, and it's not the type of movie that could probably take full advantage of it. It's from the 90s, again, would not have been developed with Atmos in mind, so sometimes that can be hard to sort of replicate, and the 5.1 here is solid. There's no reason to need anything beyond this. I think it's very good, and you'll have no issues. Like, your dialogue is going to be clear as long as you have strong front channels. If you have a sound bar, I could see there possibly being an issue with the way it was mixed, but I don't think if anybody here has a 5.1, or even if you've got two solid stereo speakers, you're just not going to have a problem with this release. 5.1 is well done here, and it's more than enough. Now, the packaging here is pretty standard stuff, especially for like Shout Factory, Scream Factory collector's editions. Not a whole lot going on here. It's kind of a standard, like almost like poster art, and it's also got that confusing thing where the names of the actresses are not lined up over their faces within the picture, which drives me nuts. But nothing really crazy there. You do get a slipcover, which will likely go out of print at some point. It's going to be for the first run. On the inside, you've got the same. Then on the inside of the case, you've got both your 4K and your Blu-ray disc. No digital code on this, just the disc. Now, for special features on the 4K, all you have is a commentary with Andrew Fleming, the director, but the Blu-ray disc has a ton of special features. You've got that an interview with Andrew Fleming, you've got an interview with the producer, you've got an interview with the writer, you got an interview with the makeup effects supervisor, audio commentary again, you've got a vintage featurette from an older home video release, you got the making of the craft, which is another one ported over from previous releases, you get deleted scenes with optional commentaries, and you've got the theatrical trailer. So in standard Shout Factory fashion, you've got all the legacy features and you've got some new features, although they all are on the Blu-ray disc, so you'll have to pop that in if you want to watch them. So overall, it's really sad that there were some errors here, because this is pretty good. Like, the visuals are good, the audio is good, it's a great release. It looks much better than this movie has ever looked before, especially with HDR and this new 4K scan from Sony. It's very well done. So, you know, I wouldn't say that the issues were super distracting outside of maybe 4 or 5 minutes throughout the movie. It's not like you had constant bitrate drops and constant quality drops and compression drops. For the most part, 99% of this movie is looking fantastic. But it is clear that they have an issue, and there was something wrong with the pressing and the compression and the manufacturing of this disc that really should be addressed. It's another issue in a long line of issues from Arrow, from Shout Factory, from Criterion. I mean, it's getting a little bit out of hand, all these disc recalls and replacements that collectors like us have to keep up with. But, you know, I'm glad that I bought this. I wasn't going to until I heard about the issues, because I didn't think it would be that big an upgrade, but it really is. It's pretty well done. So I have to give Shout Factory props, but I also have to give them some feedback here that they should really step up and address this and do something about it, because it's clear there's an issue. This is not isolated. It's not an anomaly to one or two discs. Everyone who's bought this release has seen this, I guess, except for the Bluray.com reviewer, or he didn't notice or care. But I mean, everyone else who's looked at this and reviewed it has has seen the same thing. So it's a problem. They should address it. So in the description and in my pinned comment, I'm going to leave a link to the other YouTubers' videos where you can check out a couple of his compression and bitrate comparisons. He did a really, really good job with those. But I'll also leave a link to where you can purchase this on Amazon, which helps support my channel. I would say at this point, it's okay. It's safe to purchase because one of two things is going to happen. Either they are going to replace the disc, and if you buy it, you can just get a disc replacement, and it'll probably be months and months before those actually hit the shelves, or they're not going to replace it. And honestly, I think that most of you could live with a couple of the errors here. They aren't the worst errors I've ever seen. They're just sort of annoying more than anything. It's almost like your stream dips in quality for a few minutes and then it comes back and it looks amazing. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're following along here on the channel and you're subscribed and have notifications on. Also make sure you're following on social media. All the links are in the description for that, as well as links to the Films at Home podcast, where I've had some great guests over the last few episodes. Highly recommend you guys check that out if you're at all interested in physical media and movie collecting. So that's about it. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy out there, and I'll talk to you soon.